Hello, and welcome to this edition of CRATV, where we talk about politics, policy, and politicians, all from a conservative perspective, right here in the great state of California. So please take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends can know where the conversation is taking place. Also, if you haven't already done so, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And in the case of YouTube and Facebook, make sure you hit the notification button. That way, you'll get notifications as soon as we go live, and you can participate in the live chat as the program is taking place. Also, want to encourage you, California Republican Assembly is a grassroots advocacy organization. We are a membership organization. I would encourage you to please become a member. If you want to change the politics here in the great state of California or in this nation, the only way you can do it is by being a part. So take a moment, click the join link in the description to this video and follow the directions, and you too can become a member of California's largest and oldest conservative grassroots organization. All right, now getting on to today's topic. You guys, I know you've been following everything that's been going on with whether it's the protests or all the stuff that's been going on relating to George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and all of that stuff that's been going on. Well, in the midst of that, there has been introduced a political agenda. Now, we always knew that the Black Lives Matter, the group, had a political agenda, but now there's actually a legislative agenda. And it's been introduced via two members of Congress. That would be Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib, both members of the Squad, the more liberal, progressive, radical wing of the Democratic Party there in the House of Representatives. Well, they've introduced a piece of legislation known as the Breathe Act. And here's just a few words that Representative Tlaib had to say about this particular piece of legislation.
Tlaib, representing the 13th District and one of the most beautiful, blackest cities in America, the city of Detroit. I'm following my sister in service, Ayanna Pressley, in answering the Movement for Black Lives call. Our communities in the 13th and I are committed to fully engaging with this legislation seriously and with a sense of urgency. In this historic moment, it is critical that we listen to and trust the leadership of Black activists around the country. They had been on the front lines in defense of Black lives for decades, and it is our responsibility as legislators to hear them, respect them, and follow their example. The Breathe Act is bold, it's meaningful, it's transformative. It pushes us to reimagine power structures and what community investment really looks like. If we listen to our community members and leaders in the streets, we can start to envision through this bill a new version for public safety, a new vision for public safety, one that protects and affirms Black lives. I stand in solidarity with the leaders from Movement for Black Lives and with my sister, Congresswoman Pressley, and with the millions of protesters demanding transformation now.
All right, now, what I want you to know is there are some things that are in this particular piece of legislation that I think should be very, very concerning. The main things that I think folks are pointing at, you can find, well, tell you what, you'll find it right here in this report that was done at Fox News. Check it out.
Let's bring in Guy Benson. He joins us now. He's a political editor for townhall.com, host of Fox News Radio's The Guy Benson Show, and a Fox News contributor. First to the Breathe Act, Guy. I want to dig into this proposal here. It's wide-ranging. Everybody should take a second to look at the details of it. But here's some of the highlights. Defunding prisons and police departments, dismantling ICE and CBP, grant all ex-convicts voting rights, reparations for victims of police violence. This proposal was unveiled by two members of the so-called Squad, as you know yesterday, Guy. Rashida Tlaib used the words for this proposal to call it a new vision of public safety. The American people, if they dig through this, are going to be asking themselves, does this make us more safe or less, Guy?
Of course, it wouldn't make us more safe. It is a non-starter. It's a completely radical piece of legislation that has 0% chance of passing. Certainly, with the Republicans in control of the Senate and Donald Trump in the White House, it will not become law. I'm not even sure Nancy Pelosi is terribly eager to put this on the floor for a vote in the House of Representatives because it is filled with poison pills, even for a number of Democrats. And so, look, they can put this out. I think it is helpful when politicians tell us what their vision is for the country. And in this case, their vision is to defang the police and abolish major mechanisms for law enforcement, whether it's drug enforcement, immigration enforcement, prisons. I mean, it is, I think, telling and striking that amid a spike in violent crime in a lot of cities where the police feel like they've had their knees cut out from under them, you have some Democrats and people way out on the left saying, let's take that model basically and let's enshrine it in law and make it nationwide.
So now that sounds bad enough, right? Well, in actuality, when one takes the time to actually read the breakdown of the BREATHE Act, exactly what it is, you come to find that it is actually much, much, much more insidious even than that. So let's just take a quick break and let's run through and do a little bit of a rundown of some of the most egregious things that exist in this particular piece of legislation. So let's start with this. So one of the things they want to do is they want to eliminate programs and agencies used to finance and expand the U.S. criminal legal system. So in other words, what they want to do is that they want to get rid of our legal system. Now, what exactly does that mean when they say they want to get rid of our legal system? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because here's what it is that they want to do. This says directly make changes to the federal criminal legal system, including changes to policing, prosecution, sentencing, and jailing practices. All right. That have disproportionately criminalized black and brown communities, LGBTQIA people, indigenous people, disabled people. Specific changes include but are not limited to. Okay, before I go on and start listing some of these changes, understand that it's not that these things don't work. It's that they want to get rid of them because a disproportionate number of people who are of certain categories, we'll just say, because they had a lot of categories there, don't qualify. I mean, because it impacts them more, and it impacts them more because they tend to have run-ins with the legal system more, which is a whole nother topic that we'll talk about one day. Anyway, but let's go through some of the things. So, eliminating surveillance tactics that are disproportionately used to target black, brown, and Muslim communities by prohibiting predictive policing, facial recognition technologies, drones, and similar tools. Number 2, eliminating the use of electronic monitoring, including ankle monitors, smartphone applications, and any other tool used to track location. Now, this is why that's important, because later on you're going to find out there's something that they want to do. Basically, they're already letting all the criminals, they're letting everybody who's committing crimes, they're letting them all out of jail. And not only that, they don't want you to know they don't want the government, they don't want the police to know where those criminals are at. So, for example, if someone was a child molester, we won't be able to know whether or not they are hanging out at an elementary school or hanging out at the local park. Why won't we know that? Because we will have eliminated the ability to be able to track those individuals. Oh, but wait, there's more. Ending civil asset forfeiture, which is, by the way, something that I think even many of us conservatives can agree with. Abolishing mandatory minimum sentencing laws, ending life sentences, abolishing the 3 strikes law. Now, those are all sentencing related things. And, to be quite honest, the one of the things that I find very interesting is that these are the same folks that have pushed for things like hate crime legislation, right? Which includes a mandatory minimum or a sentence enhancement. Well, guess what? Even their hate crime legislation would be rendered useless if we were to eliminate mandatory minimums. And they also want to eliminate 3 strikes laws. These are individuals who have committed so many crimes that are so heinous that we've just decided that they need to spend an extended amount of time out of society. And these are the very same folks that they now want to let back into society. Once again, we're talking violent criminals. We're talking people who are repeat offenders of violent crimes. Under their legislation they would no longer spend extended periods of time in jail or in prison. All right. But once again, like I told you before, there's more. All right. Developing a time-bound plan to close all federal prisons and immigration detention centers. Repeal federal laws that criminalize human movement and border entry. further repealing and replacing the 1994 Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act and non-carceral, whatever that word is, non-carceral, non-punitive investments in communities, and decriminalizing and retroactively expunging drug offenses. Okay, so let us be clear what they're trying to do here, okay? They want to get rid of all laws relating to the borders and entering the country. All of that gone. Open borders is what they're saying. We will have no borders. They're also saying that they want to close all federal prisons and all detention centers, right? They want to eliminate ICE. They want to eliminate the Border Patrol. They literally, I mean, if there was anything relating to open, they literally want to have open borders. All right. They want to close down all prisons. Later in this document, they actually talk about their desire to expand. They want to expand their desire to close jails and prisons by offering huge grants to local states or to states and local municipalities for closing jails. That's right. That's what they want to do. They want to encourage and eventually mandate that all jails are going to be closed, meaning that if someone commits a crime, this is the Breathe Act. This is what has been introduced by members of the United States House of Representatives. And, you know, I don't think that I could put it any better. I could describe it any better than how Representative Kennedy described their legislation right here.
I have looked at the Congresswoman's bill. It is clearly a serious effort to compete in the woke Olympics. I'd give it, 9.7. As an American who feels gratitude, not hatred for my country, though, the only way I know how to improve their bill is with the shredder.
So, folks, as you can clearly see, Black Lives Matter is not about. It's not about addressing the issue of law enforcement excessive use of force against individuals of color. It's not. It is literally about tearing down our society. And if you don't believe that removing all crimes or decriminalizing all crimes and then letting all the criminals out of jail, if you don't believe that that will negatively impact society, if you don't believe that that is about tearing down society, all one needs to do is look at what's happening right now in states where folks like this, folks like these, we're talking just basically Marxists like this govern, like California and in New York and cities like Chicago, right? Take a look at what's going on with the amount of deaths and crime and the untold number of shootings that have been taking place. The numbers are rising, and they're rising dramatically in these areas. And these are all areas that, once again, have decided, whether it was pre-COVID or during COVID, they decided we're going to eliminate bail, or we're not going to require people to do bail. We're not going to keep people in jail because we don't want them to get infected with COVID. So we're going to arrest them, and then we're going to release them. And that's what's happening in those areas. In fact, here's a report of exactly what's happening.
Next on the docket, a spike in violent crime in big U.S. cities. Now, the nation has been dealing with the pandemic, as you know. We've got a financial crisis from the economy shutting down and massive protests after George Floyd was killed by police in Minneapolis. Some say it constitutes the perfect storm. Cities from coast to coast, including New York, Atlanta, Miami, Chicago, Minneapolis, and more, are seeing big jumps in everything from homicides to gun violence. But New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio and the NYPD, they are very far apart when agreeing on the why. The mayor, he's blaming COVID, and he says putting people out of work, hampering the court system. Cops say, no. Early releases from bail reform are major driving forces. Plus, police in many cities are saying they're feeling constricted out of what they can do on the streets due to the climate out there, and obviously the community or some members of it feel free rein to do what they want.
So, folks, as you see, this is just a small taste of what it's going to be like should something like the Breathe Act be put in place. If you don't believe me, keep in mind, these are areas where, whether it was pre-COVID or post-COVID, they decided that, okay, we're not going to keep people in jail who commit crimes. We're just going to let them, we're going to arrest them if we arrest them at all, and we're going to just put them back out on the streets. We're not going to require bail. We're just going to put them back out on the streets. And then they go out, and then once again, more and more and more and more crime and anarchy. Folks, you cannot have a just society where there are no consequences for bad actors. You can't. You just absolutely, positively cannot have any sort of a just society. And that is exactly what the goal of the folks at Black Lives Matter is. These individuals want to make sure that we dissolve into anarchy so that basically they can, they can come through with their Marxist ideas and then attempt to take control of this country. And I, for one, will not allow it to happen. And I want to encourage you, share this video, tell everybody, let people know about the Breathe Act. It cannot and it should not ever, never should it become law. And by the way, if you don't believe me, you can just listen to Ilhan Omar, and she'll tell you what their eventual goal is.
As long as our economy and political systems prioritize profit without considering who is profiting, who is being shut out, we will perpetuate this inequality. So we cannot stop at criminal justice system. We must begin the work of dismantling the whole system of oppression wherever we find it.
That's right, folks. It's about tearing down our entire society, tearing down everything that has made America great. And I, for one, will not stand for it, and I pray that you won't either. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's CRATV. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program, telling your friends about the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party. Talk to you again real soon.